Welcome back, everybody. So now we are going to look at this section that has a focus on unseen men, which is previously referred to as hidden or invisible men. And we need to remember that mothers can be hidden too. For assessments to be as rich as possible, we need to gather the views of all significant adults. And that means adults that are significant to the child that we are assessing. Case supervision for practitioners working with children and families enables reflection and explores decision making. It's important to understand the child's lived experience, and supervisors play a really important role in helping practitioners in identifying the adults that are involved in children's lives and the care that they provide to those children. In understanding the child's lived experience, supervisors should help the practitioner to identify the men that are involved in the care of children. When discussing the family, the supervisor should encourage practitioners to reflect that it can be difficult to get mothers perhaps to open up and discuss their current or previous partner's involvement with the children in their lives. And supervisors should support practitioners to find ways to engage with mothers and build trust. They need to think about, was the father at home and did the practitioner speak to them about the care that they provide the child? And if they weren't at home, has the practitioner arranged another visit in order to be able to speak to them when they are there? The supervisor should offer guidance and training on working with fathers and male carers and ensure that practitioners remember the important role that male figures play within a child's life. Supervision should support practitioners to recognise that there are a range of factors that can impede engagement and effective practice. And these can operate at a number of different levels. That can be economic, cultural, organisational, as well as at a practice level. Many families that are involved with children's social care are living in poverty, and there is growing evidence not only of the material consequence of poverty, but also the feelings of shame that accompany this. And this can lead to impaired capacity to cope, and that includes managing relationships and parenting. Interactions with children's social care for men can be fraught with hostility, avoidance, and misunderstanding. And um, reflecting on this and the differing views of children and mothers from practitioners can really help support engagement with men that may pose a risk. Any work that is done by practitioners with men who pose a risk should be planned and fully supported. And supervisors should enable practitioners to reflect on when they're not able to engage males and fathers within a family. And they also need to support and help the practitioner to identify what it is that the barriers are in engaging with these males and address these barriers so that they can be overcome. A strength-based and restorative approach should be encouraged when attempting to engage fathers. Practice should recognise strengths and encourage a collaborative approach. Overall, male figures within families need to be respected and their roles very much valued to ensure that there is meaningful engagement. Supervisors have that opportunity to act as a critical friend to the practitioner and support the improvement of practice with male figures through supervision, through customer feedback, through practice observation, and also through reviewing the work that practitioners carry out. There are times when opportunities are missed to identify individuals that pose a risk to children, and the powers of children's social care are limited and they cannot act without evidence. An example of this includes when professionals or relatives report that someone is in a relationship with a risky individual, but those individuals then deny this. Without evidence, often referrals cannot be progressed. Please do close the loop on any referrals or concerns that you have by following these up in different ways, providing more evidence if your referral cannot be progressed. Children's Social Care does accept photographs of physical injuries as possible evidence of abuse. However, each organisation will have their own policy with regards to whether or not you are able to take photographs of children's injuries. Please ensure that you follow your own organisational policies and procedures. If your organisation allows for photographs of injuries to be taken, then please do send these along with your referral. And we're now going to demonstrate how to navigate the website.
If you're unable to take photos, then ensure that you complete a body map, which is part of the Multi-Agency Referral Form, MARF, where the injuries can be fully documented. This is the Shropshire Safeguarding Community Partnership homepage, and I'm going to demonstrate how to find a MARF. Firstly, go to the Procedures tab at the top, then Children's Safeguarding Policy and Procedures. On the right-hand side, select Regional Child Protection Procedures for the West Midlands. Just make sure that you selected Shropshire from the drop-down box. Type in what you're looking for into the search bar, and I am going to type MARF. Then, when you have got the first option, which is the multi-agency referral form, click on the link. Then in the top right-hand corner, that should come up. Open the file. So if you scroll down to the appendix 1, which is pages 7 to 10, you can see there, I'll just make sure you can see it all. You can see there's opportunity to document precise injuries to the child.
Thank you. I'm now going to hand over to Corinne.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just going to go over the importance of using the escalation policy. So when practitioners are working together in the complex business of safeguarding children, there will be inevitably be occasions where there are professional differences of opinion or concerns about practice, decisions, actions, or lack of actions to a referral, an assessment, or the progress of a child's plan. In these circumstances, practitioners have a duty to take action to address these disagreements as soon as they arise in a way that's both appropriate and proportionate. So, learning from serious case reviews and more recently, local child safeguarding practice reviews highlights the importance of doing this to ensure that children and young people are not left at risk of harm. If sufficiently serious, and when disagreements are not able to be resolved easily and quickly, it's really important that they're escalated formally and recorded. So, some of the key principles are good working together requires sharing information and discussing joint working appropriately and often. Any issues or disagreements should be resolved quickly and at a practice level. And the focus should be on the child's safety and welfare at all times. Addressing any disagreements should not detract from working together effectively to safeguard and promote the welfare of children. So, in the key principles, carry on. Any disagreements or concerns raised by professional colleagues should be seen as genuine, valid, and given full consideration. Be aware of the escalation routes within your own agency and know who to talk to. And at each stage of the process, a record should be retained of contacts, discussions, and outcomes, which should be recorded on the child or their family's file. You can see that in the process, the escalation is clear from a conversation between professionals, then managers, then to assistant director level. And the links to the escalation policy are included in the Padlet that you'll have access to. So I'm now going to go on to a section about trauma-informed practice. We're always told, aren't we, not to assume, but actually assuming makes an ass out of you and me. But on this particular area, let's turn this on its head, as we need to think of this really differently. Trauma-informed organisations assume that people have had traumatic experiences, and as a result, they may find it difficult to feel safe within services and to develop trusting relationships with service providers. I'm wondering, Lisa, whether you can think of any examples of trauma.
Yeah, so there are lots of different ways in which people can have experienced trauma. And we don't just think about the children that we come into contact with, we think about the parents that we are working with and other members of the family as well. So they themselves could have been neglected. They could have lost loved ones when they were younger or throughout their lives. They could have been in accidents. You know, they could have lost their homes. There's lots of different ways in which people could have experienced trauma, and we need to come at our work in a trauma-informed way and assume that people have had traumatic experiences within their lives.
Thank you very much. So when we're working with individuals of any age that we're supporting, this means we're connecting with them, talking to them, and recognising that they have experienced trauma. It's a high possibility that the trauma has been caused when they were a child or an adult by those people who are closest to them, either adults in a parenting role, other family members, or intimate partners, where instead of living in a protective and nurturing relationship, it may have been full of threats, abuse, neglect, and gaslighting. It may help to think of trauma, danger, stress, and shock, and the opposite, which is safety, feeling safe, security, protection, and well-being. Emotional trauma are the feelings you have which are a normal response to a disturbing event. So feeling upset and becoming anxious, for an example. And it becomes post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, when your nervous system gets stuck and you remain in psychological shock, unable to make sense of what happened or process your emotions. So trauma responses can look like needing control, agreeing to things that you don't really want to agree to, but it seems like the easiest option, feeling responsible for things that are completely out of your control, chronic, prolonged, long-lasting feelings of emptiness, seeking constant escapism, which could become addictive, such as alcohol or drug use, under or overeating, feeling like you're on guard all the time. And this is simply exhausting. So trauma-informed care is an approach to engaging people with histories of trauma that recognises the presence of trauma symptoms and acknowledges the role that trauma has played in their lives. So the first principle is safety. Often people who've experienced trauma don't feel safe anywhere. Spaces that are inviting, where everyone is welcomed and supported, no matter what an individual's gender, culture, race, sexual orientation, their age, their financial position, or emotional state, that will help them feel more comfortable. We know that people need to feel safe in order to talk openly and honestly. And it's then that the help and support they need can be identified. If we think of this in the context of unseen men, then we will not know if they are at risk or pose a risk if we haven't built a connection with them in the first place. So connection before correction. So the second principle is being transparent and trustworthy. So building trusting relationships can be difficult for trauma survivors to develop trust. Always be transparent by letting the person know what's happening. If something changes and you can't do what they were expecting, then be honest and let them know. And if they know, you'll keep them updated about what's going on. They're less likely to become anxious and more likely to trust in the future. So the third principle is choice. Now, choice equals control, but trauma takes away from the person, takes control away from the person that's experiencing it. Trauma survivors can be very uncomfortable in situations where they don't feel in control. And it can be as simple as the order in which they do things, what they'd like to drink, what they want to wear. So the fourth principle is collaboration and mutuality. Now, sometimes a person in authority can be a trigger for a trauma survivor. They associate being told what to do without any input of their own with those in authority. To combat this trigger, involve people in what is happening, the routines, process. And if you think of nothing about me without me, you won't go far wrong. If practitioners are not involving males within their assessments, then decisions that impact them and their families are being done to them and not with them. And this is not mutual or collaborative. So the fifth principle is empowerment, recognizing that power has been taken away from individuals and how important it is to them to be in situations where they are empowered to make decisions. They've got choices and have a voice, and that helps them to feel safe. You'll have noticed that every principle of trauma-informed care has important characteristics, and each requires being connected to the needs of people. And it's so important that you listen with empathy. The trauma-informed workforce is recognising where people are affected by trauma and adversity, and that is able to respond in ways that prevent further harm and support recovery, and can address inequalities and improve life chances. And now I'm going to pass you back to Lisa.
Thanks, Corinne. So this slide is full of things that work for different people and help individuals, from talking to walking, singing, having a bath, reading. And it's important that we empower people to find things that will help them. It's fine to make suggestions if people can't come up with their own initially, but making a suggestion for somebody to go for a run because it works for you is not being trauma informed. Believe me, if somebody suggested I go for a run, I'd want to sleep for a week and bury my head, because the idea would terrify me. It really wouldn't work for me. So, if somebody struggles with being in outdoor spaces, suggesting they go for a run is not a good idea. Yeah. So support them to think of things that are well within their own capabilities, encourage and support, and don't come up with things that are outside of their capabilities, because that's not what's trauma informed. We've got to support them within what they're capable of doing. What is important is to recognise that previous trauma is there in many of the people that we work with, and work in a trauma informed way. When working with these individuals that have experienced trauma, their journey can take time, lots of time sometimes, and involve them taking one step forward and two steps back. And you will take this journey with them, and it can be frustrating and it can be tiring, but you need to use your skills, your knowledge, your colleagues and your supervisors to help you, to help them through it, because they need you to take those steps with them so that you can support them and their children and that whole family to get where they need to be. And eventually they will get to the top and they will make it. So on the screen, you can see the QR code to the Padlet, and the hyperlink for that Padlet can also be found in the video description. This Padlet contains all of the links, the clips and the resources that have been discussed throughout the Unseen Men Taking It a Step Further training presentation. We really hope that this has been useful for you and that it helps you within your practice. Thank you very much for joining us.